Hi, welcome to the Seraphine Podcast. We're doing something a little different in season 2. I am an avid cinephile. I love movies. I love to obviously watch TV coming out of COVID or in COVID still. Been watching lots of TV. I love music. And I also love therapy. And a lot of times when I watch TV or I listen to music or I experience something new, it allows my mental health to heal and to calm and to be inspired. So I'm going to start doing these conversations with people who may not necessarily share my point of view, but have watched something, listened to something, experienced something, and talk about it. Because I do believe that we need to be inspired. And a lot of times we can't afford the therapist, and we can live vicariously in a character, or a lyric in a song can pull us through the day, or a piece of art that we look on a wall can change our perspective. So I began today's first kind of episode on this with a show and a person who has helped me beyond what he probably could ever understand. The person is Ricky Gervais. Yes, the comedian. He's done a few episodes. Most of you might know him from The Office or the Golden Globes and his snarky humor. But he also did 2 shows that are kind of off the beaten path. One is called Derek and the other one is called Afterlife. And Afterlife is a show that, I'll be honest with you, when I say it touched my soul, it touched my soul to the point to where there are elements in my life now that the themes in the show have played out into my life. So, not many of you know a lot about my personal life with my husband, but my husband's first wife passed away. And not very many people that I've come across have ever been in that situation. When you marry someone who is widowed or has loved someone that has passed away, there is this ghost of this perfect person in your mind. And it is probably one of the hardest things I had to deal with, because in my own life, I had been in and out of so many relationships where I didn't feel enough. I think we all can relate to that to some degree. And when it came to meeting my husband, I met him at a very vulnerable time in my life at age 38, where I had moved back from New York. And I didn't know really what I was doing with my life, because I had turned down a really great opportunity in Australia. And I felt like a fool. And when I met him, he was going through something similar, but it just felt different because he's such a strong guy. And he's very opinionated, and he's very rough around the edges. He's very sarcastic, and he can be downright mean sometimes. And Ricky Gervais is a lot like that. And he makes me laugh, and he makes me see life in a way that makes me understand that I am good enough, and I should be a little bit cheeky about, hey, I've lived some life, and I can rest my laurels a little bit back on the fact that I've had a lot of great experiences, and I may not be perfect, but who the F cares, right? So Afterlife, this show is about a widower and about how he doesn't give an F anymore. And he basically is borderline suicidal, and he has got his dog Brandy, and he's teetering. It just happened. She died of cancer. What I did is I decided that with my team, I've been asking them to bring things to me, or I'm sharing things with them that mean a lot to me. And the person I asked to watch the show with me is Chelsea. So Chelsea, thank you so much for deep diving into this show, because I mean, your life right now is filled with all the good things. You're going to be getting married very soon. There's lots of fun positivity. And here I am making you watch a show about a widower who wants to commit suicide. So when you first sat down for the first episode, I want you to be totally like, just no holds barred. Like, tell me the truth. Like, episode 1, you were like, what?
Well, I always like when people open my eyes to new things, whether that's a show, an idea, whatever it may be, because when someone tells you to listen to or to watch something, it's getting inside their brain a little bit. So I find that fascinating. I love learning about people and the way that they think and the way and why they are the way that they are. So I was excited to start the show. Typically, it takes me an episode or 2 to get into any show. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's very rare that I'm like hooked automatically. When I started the show, I'm a very visual person, and the show itself is pretty like
Plain.
Yeah, the
Simple.
colors are very neutral. I don't know if that's so weird, but I'm visual like that. It was very dark for me. But you know what? If I'm in the mood to watch something like that, I'll get into it. It's not like, I love dark shows. Like one of my favorite actors is Robin Williams, and Good Will Hunting is a very like positive but dark movie also, because they're going through this pain and therapy and stuff. So it's similar. It has beautiful moments though too, this show, because I told you, I said, it reminds me of P.S. I Love You with Hilary Swank and Gerard Butler, because Tony, who is Ricky Gervais in this show, his wife passes away, and she leaves behind these like video talks.
Yeah, like vignettes and like inspirational stuff.
Inspirational things to keep him going. And that's kind of what Gerard does with Hilary Swank and P.S. I Love You, but through notes and flowers and stuff. So anyways, I love that part. Whenever I watch something heavy, I feel heavy, so I have to take it in small doses. But to answer your original question about how I felt about the first episode, I wasn't hooked automatically. Yeah. But I kept going, and we'll get into that. But that was my first
Definitely.
initial.
And I appreciate your honesty, because for me, I went into it almost like a researcher, because I wanted to have a better understanding of my husband. And I felt similarities of who I see Ricky Gervais in public. His persona reminds me a lot. My husband's a bloke, you know. I mean, he can be a real bloke, and I love that. But it's also, you know, sometimes it's hard. There are days where I'm so sensitive and I'm so rainbows and, you know, Wizard of Oz, Technicolor, that sometimes he looks at me like, you know, you've got to look at life in black and white.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about episode 1. And it starts out with the wife looking in the camera. He's hitting play on the computer. And she says that, you know, you're lovely and you're useless, but here's a guide without me. And it was interesting because the show starts out with the song "Lovely Day."
Yep,
lovely day.
One of my favorites.
And I mean, you're kind of like, where is this going?
Yeah.
And he's going into the kitchen, and there's no food. I think there's like a vegetable curry and some beans, and his poor dog doesn't like. It is like, what are you feeding me? So you're just setting this up to where you're like, okay. And he looks like kind of a slob.
Yeah.
And then you go into what his day is like. And he works for this paper called the Tamberry Gazette. And what I found really interesting is you know, all these average people, right? And when I moved back from New York to Kansas City, I felt so much cynicism, because in my brain, I was going back to the Tamberry Gazette. I'm like, where the fuck am I going to work? I'm in Kansas City. It sucks.
I feel that too.
Right? So when you moved, moved from California back, was that feeling in you?
100%. Oh my gosh. I was like, what? I don't want to work a boring job. I don't want to be around boring people. I have to be inspired. and be inspiring. And so I totally felt that. And I really didn't give people of Kansas City the credit.
No.
I mean, everyone here is creative and up to something and doing something. So it's not just in the big cities, but I felt the same way.
Yeah. It's like, I posted this little quote about, tears being washing your eyes so you can see your life more clearly.
I loved that, by the way.
Thank you.
I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I saw it the other day in, like, quote sections. I was like, so what I liked about this was, they have these simple characters. Like in the beginning, there's Sandy, who's this Indian girl who is going to apply to be a reporter. There's Postman Pat, who is hilarious. You're going to have, if you haven't seen him, he comes in as a bigger character. There's Kath. Kath is the girl that we all know who, she probably goes home to her cat, but she likes to talk a big game. She thinks she's kind of fashionable, but at her heart, she's a good person.
Yeah.
You're like, you root for her, but it's like, Kath, calm down. Like, we know. And then Lenny is like the chubby best friend.
Yeah.
So you see this boring office and you're like, okay, this is going to be interesting. What I found in it, though, was a reflection of doing this podcast and season 1 and this feeling of, they say in the first episode, is anyone reading our newspaper?
Yeah.
We make a free newspaper that has silly stories, and is anyone, where do we find the hope in it? And it reflected so much back to me of looking at my views for the podcast and being like, why the hell am I doing this? Does anyone care? So when you were watching it, what was your first feelings about just like the office, the feeling? Were you just like, what was running through your brain?
I just feel like it, well, first of all, that office reminded me of The Office, the show. I don't know, because the characters were very like
mundane.
Yes. I felt like there was no inspiration there. And I feel like Kath is the one that's bringing like some jazz to the office here, because she comes with like some random ideas all the time and wants to talk about things. Whereas, Ricky Gervais, I could tell he just wants to be in his own zone at his computer and not really like,
he's just trying to get through the day.
He's trying to get through life. Yeah. So I see like how you could draw the similarities between people not reading the paper and people not listening to the podcast, but why are we still going? What's keeping us going? So I think although these people look like they're not motivated, they are deep down. They want it to succeed. They want to keep going with it.
And they care.
They do care. Yeah. So
they care like painfully.
Yeah.
Like to a point where like it's almost like and each story. So this episode plays out to where he talks to his boss, and his boss is his brother-in-law, and the brother-in-law is like, I know that, she died. My sister died, but you've got to get it together, bro. You're welcoming this new girl to work. She's supposed to be excited, and you've got to go out and find motivation. Be a journalist. Yeah. And he's telling him all these like great scoops. And his big scoop is that there's a guy who received 5 postcards or birthday cards that were exactly the same. So the same Snoopy card that says like, happy birthday, and some little saying.
Yeah. And
he sits down with him in the interview, and the guy is like, oh, well, when I got the second card, I was like, and the third. And then the 5th, it was like God was saying something to me. And Ricky Gervais is so sarcastic.
Yeah.
And his chubby friend is like writing the notes. He's like, yeah,
He's into it.
He's so into it. And then it takes this beautiful moment where he said, and I just wanted, and he looks at the chair next to him that's empty, to share it with my wife. Mm-hmm. And she passed away last year. And you watch Ricky Gervais's face just change.
Yeah.
So I think that first episode was really establishing that we have to look around us, and some of the mundane and some of the boring is like, it kind of, you got to look for the beauty even in the smallest parts.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about
I'm excited to talk about episode 2 too. And the great thing about this is I am so excited for those of you who watch this, who are interested in Ricky Gervais. You'll see with each episode where we go with this. But I'm also excited to hear from you guys who are listening or viewing. If there's something that you're interested in, a TV show, a song, or something that you're super passionate about, send it to me. I'd like to listen to it, and I'd love to talk to you about it, because a lot of times we see things through different lenses. I'm 43. Like I said, I did it because of my husband.
Yeah.
Chelsea is going to be a brand new bride to be. And frankly, it should be roses and fucking sunshine that we're watching. But what I love about it is that it's sharing a little bit of me.
Yeah.
But also, I think in the second episode, you see a little bit of yourself as well.
Totally.
So we'll wrap this up here. And thanks for listening to this first episode about Afterlife with Ricky Gervais.